attracted you to this subject matter?
So I was approached by Insignia Films in 2017. We took a meeting and they said, hey, do you want to direct a film about Alvin Ailey? That's what we're interested in trying to do. And my head exploded because I have been a fan of the company since I first discovered them in college. And initially, it was just for me as a documentarian, knowing that I was about to embark on a film that would be so visually rich, and I was hungry to have the chance to see if there was a way to, experiment with my practice in that way and tell stories visually. And then as I deepened my understanding of Mr. Ailey's biography, which I wasn't as familiar with, there was, this real joy in going on a journey with somebody whose work I really admired and seeing his own, story of becoming.
Was there any part of this journey that surprised you?
Yes, I think, Mr. Ailey's intense privacy was not something that I was sort of aware of before I started. And even thinking about that way in which, even with his oldest and closest collaborators, he held himself at bay. And there's kind of that, to me, a very intriguing duality just to know about him, that somebody who could be so generous, who was so capable of shining a light, who created such a formidable and long-lasting institution, was also incapable of creating a certain kind of, intimacy for himself. And that I just wouldn't have predicted.
Do you think it was societal pressure that kind of drove him to the privacy, if you will?
Yeah, I think Mr. Ailey is a man very much that reflects his times. So it's a societal pressure to present yourself in a certain way as, a Black person, what it takes to succeed in 1958, to carry that through, the civil rights movement into the 70s and 80s. I think the pressure to not present yourself publicly as a queer person, although he was out to everybody that knew him, that certainly contained it. And I think there's just, his own, the kind of real, this kind of heart-wrenching experience of his early childhood, of, this very nomadic experience in childhood, the kind of that period of Jim Crow, as well as, the kind of abandonment by his father. I think there's a kind of deep sort of wound that is a part of that early experience that was also about ways that he was hyper self-protective. And I think that's what that privacy was about.
I just had this feeling of like he was heroic to me in many ways. And I don't know if people understand that. And I think I don't know if that was your intention to show that, or it just sort of happened organically, but we see that there is a heroic nature to this man.
For my editor and I, that is like a conversation that we always had. I mean, we were just so like in awe of the things that happened in his life and the access he had to like extraordinary musicians who are coming through town, discovering these beautiful places of dance, his aliveness and real curiosity that he would just, send himself. He would sort of follow his curiosity wherever it led him. And then this kind of total dedication and fierce commitment to a vision that I think we're in awe of, and we're so grateful for that. And there's a melancholy and a bittersweetness there, but he is a hero to me. And I think if you feel that in the film, it is a reflection very much of my kind of love that I have for him and what he has given me.
Do you think that the dance company has reached his full realized vision, or is there still progress to be made?
That is such a great question. I think there is progress to be made. I think, that scene in the film where you're sort of hearing about the kind of unwieldiness. I mean, at some point he's steering like a cruise liner, it's like a massive ship that he is helming. And I think what you lose is a kind of the capacity to experiment more, kind of nimbleness that you have when he's like the scrappy days. I think at that moment that Sylvia Waters tells us that he's like, maybe I can just leave the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater and it could just be the American Dance Theater. I'll go off and do something else. I think it's wrestling with, you know, how do you keep, what does it require to keep an institution of that scope and scale going? But I'm optimistic that they are now in a position to really do sort of push forward. They've got incredible, their artist in residence is a young dancer, Jamar Roberts, who's been with them forever, and he's doing beautiful, sensitive, you know, interesting boundary pushing work. So I think there is always space for growth, and I think they're excited about that too. You know, flexing a bit more now that they can.
And as a documentarian, if your piece, your film, what I would refer to as a piece because I think it's a work of art in many ways, inspires that change, it has to invigorate you in ways that you probably haven't had in most other projects, because you could be the catalyst that takes that vision that hasn't been realized, and it could happen, and it could be because people are learning about what people should already know, that this man was a hero.
Yeah, and I think what's been so great about the reception to the company, who had, you know, no editorial control over this film, they represented it at the end, and that, you know, they said they trusted us, and that was kind of the journey they had to go on for themselves. But they are so like they are happy that there's this very intimate human portrait that really grounds their company in the kind of essence of this man. And it's interesting, you know, that his most political dance work, which we show in the film, Masakela Langage, where he's saying to the audience, you know, he's confronting the audience like, thank you very much. They, you know, they are here. I think there was ways that in looking at the old work, they had a sense of, I don't know, a place that they might be able to kind of flex and experiment with more and take more bold chances. That would be amazing to me if that was the case, but that they feel that the kind of visionary leader that whose work and passion they continue to advance has been humanized, and that they care about that, I think is very important.
What do you hope people take from the film?
For, you know, people who don't know the company, I hope that they'll somehow stumble onto this film and fall in love with, you know, this incredible artistry and understand this American, you know, super significant American arts figure. And for people who love the company and go see it every year, and I think know the name Alvin Ailey, but are disconnected from his commitment, his delicacy, his vulnerability. And again, I think that sacrifice, I think that there's a richer appreciation for what they get to live with now in his wake, and connecting with him more. I feel, you know, honored to have spent time with him and to just spent time listening to him. And I hope that that's something that becomes an opening for, you know, even the super fans.